All right, Shabbos say good morning. Good morning. Let us begin. A lot to do today, Baruch Hashem. So begin by thanking our sponsors for this morning's Shear, to thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Sivan, to thank Paul and Kathy Pollack for dedicating all the Shumer and Drushos this month as a schus refuah shalema for Kathy's sister, Donna Baker Matson. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, she together with Kol Cholei Yisrael have a complete and enduring refuah. And to thank our Daf Yomi sponsors for today, Chaim Rabenstein, in memory of Baruch Naftali Ben HaChaver Moshe Zichron Levrach. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Sham will have an aliyah and the family a nechama. I will say with that, let us begin. We have a lot to do today, Baruch Hashem. Today's daf is daf Zayin. We are picking up Emiras Hashem on Vav Amud Beis, and we left off with Rav Yasser. So if you remember again, I will say we left off in the middle of a story in the wide lines of Vav Amud Beis. Let's pick up 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 lines up from the bottom. Again, we got a little bit further, but just for the sake of the story, let's begin here. So remember again, there was a whole exchange about Rav Yasser, whether or not Rav Yasser was a Talmid Chacham, not a Talmid Chacham. So the Gemara said, Rav Yasser certainly a Talmid Chacham. Not only that, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu ultimately agreed with Rav Yasser. How did HaKadosh Baruch Hu agree with Rav Yasser? Rashi, the volume is going into the red. I don't know if that means anything with this or just stam, but I figured I would just good. Thank you. No, I didn't want to cause you more work later. All right, so Gemara says as follows. So va'od v'har Rav Yasser hu da'askimare al yadei. Rav Yasser ultimately again Choshen Baruch Hu agreed with him. Dichsiv v'tizan la Pilag. So both say this is the tragic story of Pilegesh Begiva. So remember again, Pilegesh Begiva was the story of a man who has a fallout with his concubine, with his Pilegesh. Ultimately kicks her out of the house, and she is then abused and ultimately dies at the hands of the men of Binyamin. The husband in a rage cuts up her body into 12 pieces and says, "Look at what happened to my wife, to my Pilegesh, in the hands of the man of Binyamin," and it begins a civil war within Klal Yisrael. So Rav Yasser, so we'll say, so what happened? Why did the guy get so upset at his Pilegesh? Rav Yasser Amar Zvuv Matzala. Rav Yasser says he found a fly. Rav Yasser say Bepashtos, what this means is he found a fly in his food, and he got so upset that this caused the whole fallout. Rav Yonasan Amar Nema Matzala. He found a hair. Rav Yasser say we'll discuss what that means in just a moment. Va'ashkechei Rav Yasser le'Eliyahu, and Rav Yasser ultimately found Eliyahu Navi. Rav Yasser say, by the way, without even saying anything else about Rav Yasser, the fact that he ran into Eliyahu Hanavi kind of says it all. Right? That's, again, we bump into people all the time. It's just, you never know, you may have bumped into Eliyahu Hanavi, you just didn't realize it, right? But Lamaisa, Rav Yasser bumped into Eliyahu Hanavi, and not only that, he knew it was Eliyahu Hanavi. So, okay, by the way, I want to point out, the commentators in the Gemara actually asked that shaila, why are we debating the piety and the knowledge of Rav Yasser if ultimately, again, he's dialoguing with Eliyahu? In any event, he bumps into Eliyahu Hanavi, Amalei Mai Ka'avid HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Rav Yasser asks Eliyahu a very interesting question. What is the Ribono Shel Olam doing now? What is he doing? Amalei Asik Pilegesh Begiva. Ultimately, again, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is learning the sugya of Pilegesh Begiva, which Rabbi say, what a Gemara also to learn in the lead up to Shavuos, that what does the Ribono Shel Olam do? HaKadosh Baruch Hu also learns Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu learns Torah. So Rabbi say, why? Because there's something so profound, there's something so beautiful, there's something so magical in Torah, that even the King of Kings, even the Ribono Shel Olam himself, wants to be asuk, wants to be involved in it. And if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is asuk b'Torah, and somehow, some way it does something for him, then I will say, imagine what Torah does for us. Umay ka'amar. And what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu say? Amar le, Ev Yasser b'ni kachu omer, Yonasan b'ni kachu omer. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu darshans the two opinions. In Shemaim, Hashem is saying, Ev Yasser, my son, is saying that he got upset because ultimately, again, he found the fly. And Yonasan, my son, says that he got upset because he found the hair. So Amar Lei, Chas v'Shalom, Umi'ika Svika Kamishmaya. So Rav Yasser is very surprised. He says, I don't understand. In Shamayim, there's no safek, there's no machlokes. Right? You must remember again, machlokes is a function of a lack of clarity in Torah. Right? If we had clarity, there's no machlokes. Let's remember again, first machlokes in the history of the Jewish people, first machlokes in halacha in the history of the Jewish people, remember? So machlokes Shammai and Hillel about somchen, do we do smicha on Yom Tiv? That was the first machlokes in Klal Yisrael. Before that, there was clarity. Right? So with clarity, you have no machlokes. So here, Rav Yasser is distressed to hear that in Shamayim, there's machlokes about what happened in Pilegesh Begiva. Shabbos is incredible. Amar le Eliyahu said, no. Elu v'elu divrei Elokim chayimim. So Rabbi say, to which ultimately, again, Eliyahu responds, Chas v'shalom, there is no machlokes. Rather, in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Elu v'elu divrei Elokim chayimim. Rabbi say, what a beautiful phrase. Right? Both these words and those words are both true. And I will say, so what this is absolutely incredible. Elu v'elu divrei Elokim chayim. And I will say, I'll point out that this phrase is often misused. Right? Whenever you hear, sometimes when dealing with two opinions, people will say, Elu v'elu divrei Elokim chayim. That's not true. Many times in life, one person is right and one person is wrong. Just because two Jews offer an opinion doesn't automatically make it Elu v'elu divrei Elokim chayim. Which is important to understand. There is right and there is wrong. Elu v'elu divrei Elokim chayim means that in Shamayim for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there could be two different applications. I saw an incredible mashal, by the way. I will say, imagine for a moment you have an outlet. This is so good. You have an outlet. Right? So I will say, so what do you plug into the outlet? You plug in your refrigerator and you plug in your oven. Plug in your refrigerator, you plug in your oven. And I will say, now what's incredible about this? The same source of electricity is going to create cold, is going to create heat. But which one is it? Does electricity create warmth or does it create cold? And the answer is Elu v'elu. The energy itself could create two different outcomes. But it's the same source of energy. It's the same true energy. Elu v'elu divrei Elokim chayim means that the Ribono Shel Olam gave us a Torah that has multifaceted levels of truth. And that truth can express itself in different ways. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Avyasar says this, and Yonasan says this, they're both true. They're different dimensions of truth. We'll say, that being said, the greatness about HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Ribono Shel Olam himself is a one-dimensional truth. But even if we look at HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we'll say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has Midas Hadin, and he has Midas HaRachamim. He has divine attribute of compassion, divine attribute ultimately of justice. So you see, but which one is he? Is he compassionate or is he strict? And the answer is, they're both plugged into the same source of energy. That's Elu v'elu divrei Elokim chayim. It's not a contradiction as long as they're both coming from the same socket, as long as they're both coming from the same pocket of energy. So the Gemara goes right there. The Gemara says, Zvuv matzav lo hekbid. Ultimately, again, he found a fly, and he wasn't makbid. This is back to the husband, right? Nema matzav vehekbid. He found the hair, ultimately, again, and he was makbid. Amar Yehuda, Zvuv bekara. Ultimately, again, he found the zvuv in his food, and Nema ba'osamakom. Ultimately, again, so I'll say Nema ba'osamakom means the makom erva. That ultimately, again, that he was upset because I guess he felt that his wife did not engage in certain accepted hygienic practices of hair removal, and therefore he was upset ultimately again about this. Zvuv miyususa, the fly disgusted him. V'nema sakanta, and the hair. Ultimately, again, he felt posed a sakana. Why? Because Rabbi say again, the hair, he was nervous, could make him a krush shavcha, could ultimately go ahead and injure him. It's actually interesting, if you take a look over here, Rashi says, Nema ba'osa makom, v'darkan hayala hashir es haseir. Apparently, again, it was the derech for a woman to remove pubic hair. That was the derech. And therefore, again, because she did not kind of fall in line with these general practices, he got upset at her. I'm sorry. Others say, no, both were in his food, right? A fly and a hair. And what happens? The fly, okay, a fly could fly into your food and it's no one's fault, it could happen. He felt the hair, ultimately, again, was pshia, was negligence on her part. But I'll say, just to be clear, this was not a good guy, right? In other words, what he did to his wife, kicking her out of the house, is obviously unacceptable. So the Gemara, I want to be clear, when the Gemara is trying to figure out the source of his anger, the Gemara is not trying to justify his anger. The Gemara is just trying to understand why he reacted in the way that he did, with absolutely no justification for his actions. Very important. We'll say, good muster in life. Sometimes you could have a reason to get angry. It does not mean the reason is valid. Right? Just to be very clear, right? Most people, when they get angry because of something. But 9 out of 10 times, the something is not really warrant the response that you're having. The Gemara goes right. Such incredible Gemara over here. The olam al yatil adam ema yiser b'soch beiso. We'll say a person should never go ahead and literally instill excessive fear in his home. Now, let's say that the lashon of the Gemara is interesting, right? What does it say? Excessive fear. Excessive fear. Now, I'll say, well, we'll define this in just a moment. Shari pilegish begiva hitala baila ema yisera ve'pila kama revavos mi'isra. We'll say what happened. The guest's husband with pilegish begiva, he instilled excessive fear in his home, and ultimately, again, it caused him to kick out his wife, and therefore caused thousands of Jews to die in the civil war. Amar Yehuda. So we'll say, by the way, so why does it say excessive fear? Right? It sounds like you should instill some fear. We'll say, so remember, not fear, chas v'shalom, but there does have to be a sense of respect and a sense of order. And I don't just mean like I'm the man of the house. I mean like, let's say in a household, for children specifically, there has to be an ema. Ema doesn't have to mean fear. Ema could mean a sense of reverence. Ema means a sense of, you see this. There are homes in which, again, parents don't demand respect from children. And again, you could see it. You could see it in the way the home is run, and you could see it in the way the children behave, both inside and outside of the home. Ultimately, again, parents must instill a sense of ima, not fear, but a sense of reverence and respect within their home. Otherwise, I will say, to think that if I'm lax on this, my children are going to love me, first of all, they're not going to love you anymore. Not only that, you're doing them a terrible disservice. Because children raised without discipline, and children raised without order, and children raised without consequences become adults who live without discipline, and adults who live without order, and adults who live without consequences. And I will say those type of people get themselves into all types of life trouble and often have difficulty creating meaningful relationships of their own. That's why, again, too much ema, okay, a rule with an iron fist in the house, the kids are stifled, that's terrible. But no ema, equally a disaster as well. Amar Yehuda, I will say so beautiful. Anyone who goes ahead and instills excessive fear in his home ultimately will come to transgress 3 averos. What 3 averos? Givei arayos, shvichos damim, v'chilul Shabbos. They both say those are strong words. Those are strong words, right? If you're too much of a kapton, right? If you're too iron-handed in your home, you're going to come to go ahead and violate all these rules. What's the pshat? So ultimately, Gilei arayos. Rashi says, what's going to happen for this guy? It's going to be time for his wife to go to the mikvah. Remember, again, it's too cold to go to the mikvah. She's going to be too scared to tell him, I can't go. It's too cold. So what's going to happen? They're going to have relations, and she's a nida, but she's too scared to tell him. Shvichos damim. So Shvichos Damim comes from the story of Pilagesh Begiva and Chilul Shabbos. Chilul Shabbos, ultimately, again, what's going to happen? It's time to make Shabbos, but the wife realized, I didn't make the food. She's scared of her husband's reaction. She's going to end up cooking on Shabbos. So the idea over here is when a person just acts, I will say such a profound Gemara, when a person acts in a scary, unreasonable way, ultimately, again, that behavior boomerangs back, and in his effort to quote-unquote run a tight ship, what ends up happening? Everyone around him is just too scared to be truthful and to be honest with him, and he himself ends up transgressing. But let's say there are three things that a person has to say in his home on Erev Shabbos. Isartem, iravtem, hadliku es haner. So we'll say isartem means, did you take meiser? Because you're not allowed to take meiser on Shabbos. So ultimately he asks his household, right? Did you take meiser? Iraftem, did you go ahead and make an Erev Chatzeros, right? An Erev, and then Hadliku Hasaner. If you've done those two things, then it's time to go ahead and begin Shabbos. Now I will say, why is this here? Top of Zayin, lememrinhu benichusa. I will say, when you say these things, say them nicely. Talk nicely. Why? Ultimately, because that way people will listen to you. I will say, isn't this a profound yesod? If you want people to listen to you, if you want your family to listen to you, rarely do people listen to other people because they shout and yell. We generally tend to tune people like that out. But if you want your words to make an impact on your family, then ultimately, again, say it sweetly. Say it with kindness. Say it. I will say, by the way, it is interesting that the example the Gemara brings to this is Erev Shabbos. But I will say, just to point out, since the beginning of time, the most stressful moments in a home are the moments leading up to Shabbos, right? The statistical probability of yelling, of people getting upset. And I will say, it's so interesting because what are we preparing for? We're preparing for Shabbos. We're preparing for Shabbos Kodesh. We're preparing for a spiritual experience. Yet sometimes the anxiety level is so high that people act in ways that they should not be acting. I was thinking about this Gemara as well, that it could have a different meaning like this. Perhaps it also means like this. Shlosha dvarim sarach adum lomar besoch beiso Erev Shabbos im chashecha. I'll say, Erev Shabbos im chashecha is also a metaphor for end of life. There are three things that a person needs to be able to say to himself as he comes to the twilight of life. How do you know if you've lived a good life as you come to Erev Shabbos im chashecha, as you come to your twilight? So I will say there are three things you want to look for in life. Number one is sartem. Did you deal with your money the way a Yid should deal with money? And I will say, how does a Jew deal with money? It's not mine. I am the custodian for HaKadosh Baruch Hu's wealth. And how does that manifest itself? Tzedaka. Am I a giver? Not just with my time and resources, that's beautiful. With my money, because I will say, for so many of us, money is the hardest thing to part with because I worked hard for it and I need it. So isartem, did I give meiser? Did I go ahead and deal with my finances as a frum Torah Jew should deal with his finances? Next, iraftem. Now let's say iraftem is arvos, responsibility. Did I take responsibility for other people? Or at the end of the day, was life just about me? We get so focused and so caught up with the self that we forget that there's a din of arvos, there's a din of communal responsibility, there's a din of v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. So did I live a life of iraftem? And lastly, hadliku hasaner. Let's say hadliku hasaner, the ner Hashem nishmas adam. Did I take responsibility for myself? Did I ignite my own personalistic flame? Did I take responsibility to live an inspired life? I will say these are the three questions I have to ask myself. Erev Shabbos Sa'im Chashecha. As I get to the twilight of my life, if I want to know, did I live a meaningful and impactful life? Isartem, did I deal with my money recognizing that it's not mine, but rather I am a custodian? Iraftem, did I take responsibility for other Jews? Hadliku es haner. Did I take responsibility for myself and kindle my own flame? If I live the life of those three things, then that is a good life. Then that is a holy life. And that is a life in which I could feel confident to face HaKadosh Baruch Hu after 120. Let's go back. Rabbi Shmuel they come to Misvara. So it's interesting. So Rav Ashi said, I never heard this halacha from Rabbi Bar Chana, namely again that you have to go ahead and say these things, right? Benachas, but I understood it intuitively. I will say a person should never instill too much fear into his home. So I'll say this is pretty incredible. Why? Because there's a story of a great man who once instilled too much fear in his home and it almost led him to eat a great thing. We'll see what that means. Umanu, we'll say, who is this? Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel. So Chanina ben Gamliel, so the Gemara says, Hechilu, they caused him to eat a great thing. Chashtan, behemton shel tzadikim ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu mevi takala yadam. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't allow terrible things to happen through the animals of tzadikim. Tzadikim atzman l'kol shekain, all the more so tzadikim themselves. So how could it be? How could it be that Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel almost came to eat something prohibited? Ella, Bikshu la'achilo davar gadol. They were going to feed him something of great severity. Umaynihu Eivra min achai. So listen to this. Apparently, Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel was such like a strict and meticulous person that it almost led the members of his household to feed him Eivra min achai. Rabbi say, how did that happen? Look at the top Rashi. Eivra min achai. Shnei evar mehen Eivra min ashchuta. Umipnei emaso chatchu avadav Eivra min achai. So apparently the story was like this. The servants of Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel prepared a meal for him. They brought out the tray, and on the tray was supposed to be a complete animal. What happened? They lost one of the limbs. It could happen, right? They lost one of the limbs. So I would say, so what ended up occurring? So if you can imagine, by the way, imagine if they brought him a chicken, right? And they were missing the leg of the chicken, the bulky. So what happened? So they got nervous to bring out an incomplete chicken. One of the servants went, just cut off the leg of a living animal and put it on the tray. So we'll say he didn't end up eating it. But Lamaisa will say he almost ended up eating it. So what do you see from here? That ultimately, again, when you rule the house, so to speak, or you instill within the house a sense of aima, a sense of fear, of negativity, of anger, ultimately, again, that boomerangs and backfires back onto you. So profound. Run your home with midos tovos. Run your home with nachas. Shalach leimar okval Rabbi Lazar. It was an incredible Gemara. Bnei Adam omdim alai. Started earlier. Bnei Adam omdim alai. Obiyad lemasra malchus. Mau. So listen to this. Mar Ukva said to Rabbi Lazar, there are people who make my life incredibly difficult. Rashi says, omdim alai. Now, it's not talking about people who pose a mortal danger, but rather, again, it's talking about people who just make my life very difficult. And I have the ability to turn them into the government. And obviously, if I turn them into the government, then they'll stop making my life miserable. What's the halacha? Mao, do I have the permission to do it? V'kasav lei wrote to him, Amarti eshmura darchi mechato bilshoni. So we'll say, quoted over here, the pasuk from Tehillim. Amarti eshmura darchai machto, right? Bilashoni. I guarded my ways that I should not sin with my tongue. Eshmura lefi machsom ba'ol rash lenegdi. I muzzled my mouth when the wicked are still in front of me. So we'll say, the Gemara says, Eshmura lefi machsom ba'ol rash lenegdi. Fine. Afa pi sherash lenegdi. Even though the rush is right opposite me, Eshmura lefi machsom. I will muzzle my mouth. So the message that he got back was, even though you have the power to go ahead and turn these people in, muzzle your mouth. Don't go ahead and turn another Jew into the government. Don't go ahead and take this revenge. Shalach le kamatzar lituva v'lamatzina da'akum behu. So Mar Ukva said, but they're really making me suffer, and I don't know how much more of this I can take. So Shalach le, he sent back to him, Dom la Hashem v'yischol lo. Dom la Hashem. Right, be silent in the face of Hashem. Chalolim. Baruch Hu will take care of your problems. I will say sometimes, and this goes also to Shara B'tachon. I will say today is the last Shear of Shara B'tachon. Hopefully, again, the Chaver is following along on the Shara B'tachon chat last year today. So I will say, so when a person realizes that the things that happen to me in life happen because Hashem wants it to happen, I don't need to be the vehicle of vengeance against other people. Just leave it to God. Just leave it to God. Just outsource your battles of life to the Ribono Shel Olam. Dom la Hashem, be silent before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'yapi lecha chalolim. So listen to this. So what was the Yitzhak he gave to Mar Ukva? Hashkem v'harav alein lebeis hamedrash, then kalin me'alein. Mar Ukva, you know what you need to do? Get to shul early in the morning and be in shul late at night, and everything else will work out. In other words, that go ahead and focus on your relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and ultimately, again, everything else will fall into place. The Gemara says, Yatsa mipi Rabbi Lazar. So as soon as Rabbi Lazar said these words, They put Gniva in jail. Gniva apparently was the person who was causing Mar Ukva an incredible amount of pain. They went ahead and they put him in jail. I.e., once Mar Ukva, I will say it's an incredible idea, once Mar Ukva made the conscious decision to go ahead and give over his battles to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Ribono Shel Olam indeed waged them on his behalf. An incredible idea, I will say. Sometimes we think we have to carry everything in life ourselves, when in fact, again, what I need to do at a certain point is say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm going to do my thing, right? I'm going to do what I can do, what is in my power, and I'm going to put some of these other challenges on you, right? I can't control the people around me. That, ultimately, again, I'm putting on you, and I'm going to focus on building. I will say that's the Eitzah, right? Rabbi said to Mar Ukva, just get to the base medrash, right? Getting to the base medrash means work on yourself. Those are the things I'll say. You spend so much time in life focusing and perseverating and obsessing over the things that other people do that I don't have any control over, and instead I neglect to exert control over the one thing I do control, which is me. So Allah says to Mar Ukva, get to base medrash, build a better you. Build a better you, and everything else falls into place. Incredible. So I asked Mar Ukva, how do we know that music, right? That music is asr. I will say, by the way, this is a throwback to Sota, right? We literally just learned this sugya that after the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, right, or the siege of Vespasian. So I say, how do we know that music is asr? Sirteit v'kasavlu al tismach Yisrael al gil ba'amim v'lishlach lu mehacha. So he quoted the pasuk, said another pasuk, b'shelo yishtiyayin yemar yishech al shosav. Imeahu, for the second from the second pasuk, havamina hanimili zimra demana. I might have thought that only applies to music from instruments. About the Puma Shari, but maybe singing by mouth should be mutter. Kamash Molan, that even singing by mouth is aser. So also remember again, we saw this, I think I mentioned this, we never really got to do this sugya back in Sota as well, about what type of music or what type of singing this covers. So we'll say, so Bepashtos, it's referring to non-mitzvah related music and non-mitzvah related singing. So for example, again, the Shulchan Aruch brings down to just go to Beis HaMishtos, to just go to the pub. Just go to the pub, right, and sing. A Jew shouldn't be going to the pub regardless, right? But lamaisa, going ahead and that type of singing or that type of music, which is not related to a mitzvah, ultimately that's what's awesome. Okay, so I'm a little Puna Barnas, what's the meaning of the pasuk? Kina vidimona va'ad ada. So we'll say, so to point out, these are, Rover is quoting from the pasuk in Yoshua, talking about the cities of Eretz Yisrael. Amrle, Masas Eretz Yisrael Kachashiv. These are towns in Eretz Yisrael. Amrle, Atu Analo Yedana de Masas Eretz Yisrael Kachashiv. I know these are towns in Eretz Yisrael. So I will say, but I'm asking, is there a deeper message? El Rav Gevia Me'argiza Amar Bataima. Rather, I will say, first wide line, embedded in this pasuk of Kina, Dimona, and Ad Adavos, isn't that beautiful this is a deeper message. What's the deeper message? So the Gemara says, Taima, kol sheyish bakina al chavero. I will say anyone who has jealousy about his friend. I will say, in this case, kina really means anger, Rashi points out. Anyone who is upset at his friend because his friend wronged him, and what? Vidomem. But ultimately he's silent. In other words, he does not act to seek revenge. Vidom is silent. Shochin adead oselodin. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take care of the problem. So we'll say that's in the pasuk. Kina dimona va'ad ada. Kina, ultimately, again, if someone is angry at his fellow because he was wronged by his fellow. Vidimona, but domem, but he's silent. He does not take revenge. Ad ada, the shochin adead, the one who is eternal, ultimately, again, will take care, will settle the score, so to speak, will exact judgment. I'll say this thing, I just want to point out, the Gemara is not saying, don't try to solve your problems and just put everything on God. That's not what the Gemara is saying. But rather, ultimately, and what the Gemara is saying is like this. Certain things that have to do with other people, that you cannot fix, that you cannot control. Don't spend your life trying to control other people. Outsource that to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You work on the stuff you can work on, i.e., building you. Like the Eitz Rabbi Elazar gave to our Okva. Get to the base medrash. Make a better you. Make a better you. Put everything else in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the recipe for success. If that's the case, Siklag Umedamna Visansana Hachanami. Is there an embedded message in these names also? So Amalei. If Rav Gavia from Argiza was here, Hava Amar Bat Taima, he would have given a deeper meaning even into this pasuk as well. Anyone will say, so again, there is a message in this pasuk. Siklag, anyone who has literally again a cry tzakas legima, will say means that I'm crying out because someone else is stealing my parnasa. Now I will say, it doesn't literally mean stealing my money, but rather I will say, it means I have a taina because someone else is competing with me, right? And ultimately, again, is taking parnasa from me, vidome, and yet I'm silent. Shochin besne oselodin, the one who resides in the sneh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ultimately, again, will take judgment. We'll adjudicate. In other words, I will say, same idea over here. That it's all the same theme. Just here, it's in terms of money and not in terms of interpersonal slight. I will say, there are times in life where people objectively wrong us. So again, I could spend all of my energy and all of my time lamenting the wrong, arguing about the wrong, but knowing that I can't fix the wrong. I will say, it's incredible. What do you do in life with problems that you cannot fix? What do you do in life with problems you cannot fix? Outsource them to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and spend your energies focusing on the problems you can fix. Say, is this not the most liberating thing you've ever learned in your life, right? Do a little exercise today, right? Write down a list of all the problems you have, right? And how much time you spend on each of them. And you will discover something startling. The majority of things in which we spend time on are things we don't have control over, yet I can't let go of it. I can't let go of it. So I'll say the Gemara is giving us the most liberating piece of information. The problems you can't solve, give them to God. Give them to God. Baruch Hu, this is now your list, your to-do list from Shmuel Silber, right? I'm giving God a to-do list. Fix this, fix this, fix this, fix this, fix this, because I can't. But now, let me identify the list of the things I can fix. So those are the things I can roll up my sleeves and really make a difference, I will say. Outsource the things you can't fix in order to focus on the things you can. It's incredible. How do we know? We'll say that the wedding crown. Also we learn this in Sota. How do I know that wearing the wedding crown? We learned this at the end of Sota, that they used to wear a crown, the chazan and the kala, right? That this is aser. So Amalei midrabanon. This is not b'pomo shal Aspanias during the siege of Vespasian. Gazra ala taras chasanim v'ala iros. They were gozer ultimately again on the crowns of chasanim and on iros. Okay, so we'll say, so we learned this. Adahachi kam Rav Huna lafnu. So we'll say Rav Huna they were all having this discussion. Rav Huna got up to relieve himself. Amalei Rav Chisda kruksiv. Rav Chisda said it's a passage. I will say, what's going on over here? Why did Rav Chisda wait to speak until Rav Huna got up to go to the bathroom? Rav Huna was Rav Chisda's Rebbe, and Rav Chisda was not going to speak in the presence of his Rebbe. Once Rav Huna left, Rav Chisda then added to the conversation. He said, by the way, this is a pasuk that we no longer wear these wedding crowns. Ksiv ko amar Hashem Elokim haser hamitznefes v'hareim ha'atara zos lo zos hashvei lahegba v'agavo hashpel. So the Gemara says v'chima inyan mitznefes eitz la'atara. Why does the pasuk mention the mitznefes? We'll say now the mitznefes is the hat of the Kohen, right? Of the Kohen. Why does it mention it by a crown? Elomer lecha bisman shemitznefes barosh Kohen gadol. Atara barosh kol adam. To teach us, Rav Chisda says, when the Kohen Gadol wears his mitznefes, then every other person can wear their bridal crown as well, or their wedding crown as well. Nistalka mitznefes barosh Kohen Gadol. Once the Kohen Gadol no longer wears his crown, then what? Nistalka atara merosh kol adam. Then we are no longer allowed to wear our wedding crowns as well. So I will say, whereas beforehand, when Rav Huna was in the room, everyone was just saying this was a rabbinic enactment. Rav Chisda gave a pasuk to support this practice. Adahachi asar Rav Huna. Rav Huna came back, and I will say, Ashkechinu tahava yasvi. And he came back, and I will say, he overheard what Rav Chisda said. Amar le Elokim midrabanan. In reality, this is a din d'Rabbanan, right? It is a rabbinic enactment that with the siege of Vespasian, we no longer wear wedding crowns. Ella, Chista Shmech, but Chista is your name, V'chasda el Milech, and your words are so pleasant as well. So Chista, like Chesed, right? So your name is Chista, your words. So what he was saying is, Chista, it's a beautiful drasha, but it's just a drasha. It's not fact. In other words, fact is, why don't we wear the wedding crowns anymore? A rabbinic enactment from the siege of Vespasian. But Chista, beautiful drasha. We'll say, by the way, it's a compliment. It's a compliment. Beautiful, beautiful drasha. So the says, Ravina, Ashkechi lemar baravashi, to have a gadol kalila lebartes. It's interesting. Ravina, Thamar baravashi, was making a bridal crown for his daughter. Amrle lo savala mar haser mitznefes farei matara. Don't you subscribe to the drasha of Rav Chista that when the Kohen Gadol is not wearing his mitznefes, we don't wear our wedding crowns. Amrle, Dumiyat to Kohen Gadol begavri. No, I agree with Rav Chista's drasha, but just like the Kohen Gadol was a man, so too this prohibition only applies to a man. So again, men don't wear the wedding crowns anymore, like a Kohen Gadol doesn't wear his misnefes, but the women can. Incredible. My zos lo zos. We'll say, what is the meaning in the pasuk when it says not this and not this? Dar Shavavira, Zidna al Mishayid Rav Ami, Vizidna al Mishayid Rav Asi, B'sha'ah sh'amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, Hasar mitznefes varei ma'atara. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu went ahead and said to Klal Yisrael, literally, remove the mitznefes, which is the big dekuna, and lift up the crown. By the way, harem also is a lashon of removal, right? And remove the crown. Amru malach yeshas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono shel olam, zos lahem liyisrael, shekdimu lefanecha, b'sinai, na'asel l'nishma. I will say, incredible, in Yana Diyoma. So the malachim were incredulous. How can you tell us? By the way, I just want to point out over here, the Gemara over here is understanding the atara, the crown, is Chazal tell us that when Klal Yisrael said Na'aseh v'nishma, when they accepted the Torah and they said in the most incredible and dramatic display of blind faith, they said we will do and we will listen. They were given a crown of glory, a crown of kedusha. Now HaKadosh Baruch Hu says at the time of the Churban, give back your crown. So the Malachim say HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the people who said Na'aseh v'nishma, you're going to make them give back their crown? Amar lahen, lo, zoslen liyisrael, sheshpilos hagavoa vigbios hashafel, ve'amidu tzelem behechal. No, this is the same, no, this is the people, ultimately again, who took the great and brought it down, and took the lowly and brought it up, and they put an idol in the Beis HaMikdash. See, it's an incredible Gemara. What the Malachim are saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, don't look at what they're doing now, but look at what they did historically, Na'aseh v'nishma. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu said what they've done now, in terms of Avodah Zarah, in terms of making wrong right and right wrong, is so egregious that I have no choice but to look at them through the lens of the present. So say that's the machlokes between the Malachim and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Do you look at a person for what they've done now, or do you look at a person ultimately again for what they've done historically as well? The Malachim are saying, I know that Klal Yisrael has messed up, but remember what they did in the past. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, the current sin is so egregious that I can't overlook what is happening right now. But I will say, but it's also just in general, incredible machlokes is how we look at people, right? Often in life, we just look at people like, what have you done for me lately, right? You're only as good as your last deal, right? In other words, where are you holding right now? And we often totally forget about any historical context. And the Malachim are saying, don't forget, people may mess up, but don't forget the goodness that they've done in the past as well. Remember, in relationships, Rabosai, to look at people in a continuum, not just in a freeze frame. So often, again, especially in moments of interpersonal conflict, I just see what's unfolding in front of me now, and I lose all sense of historical or relationship continuum. The Malachim are saying, Chosh Baruch Hu, remember the continuum. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, this is so egregious right now that I can't ignore it. Incredible. So what's the meaning of the pasuk? Klamar Hashem, im shleimim, v'chein rabim, v'chein nagozu va'avar. So we'll say, this is absolutely wild. So what is the meaning of the pasuk? In Nachum, Klamar Hashem, im shleimim, v'chein rabim, v'chein nagozu. Now we'll say, now literally the way it translates is, so Hashem said, im shleimim, if you are complete, v'chein rabim, if you are multiple, v'chein nagozu, and if you are shorn, like to shear a sheep, right? Va'avar, and then you will pass. Both say, get ready for this. What does this mean? So the Gemara says, Imroa adam shemizonosa mitzum samin. Both say, let's say a person sees that his parnasa is exact. I have exactly what I need to live. So what should you do? Ya'aseh mehen tzedakah. Give tzedakah. What? So if I see it that I have exactly what I need, make sure to give. The chol shekein kishin merubin, and all the more so if you have more than what you need, give tzedakah. My v'china gozu v'avar. I will say, what does it mean v'china gozu v'avar? You'll be shorn and be able to pass. I will say, get ready for this. Turn to Rabbi Shmuel. Kala gozes minachasav v'oseh mehen tzedakah. Anyone who shears from his property and gives tzedakah. So I will say the imagery is right. I'm a sheep in life, and I have wool, right? What's my wool? My wool is my parnasa. Hell is my parnasa. So anyone who shears from his wool and gives tzedakah, nitzal midina shel Gehenna, will be saved from the din of Gehenna. Shear your materialistic wool, right? Shear your monetary wool and share your money with others. Give tzedakah, you will be saved from Gehenna. So let's say, get ready for this. Mashal l'shtei rechelos. This could be compared ultimately again to two sheep. Get ready for this. We'll say two sheep are crossing the river. Achas gizuza, v'achas ene gizuza. One is shorn and one is not. We'll say, listen to this. Gizuza avra, v'she'ena gizuza lo avra. We'll say the one that's shorn will make it across the river. The one that's not shorn won't. Why not, Rabbi say? Because the wool gets so waterlogged and gets so heavy that at the end of the day can't go across. So we'll say, so many times in life we think that the more of our stuff that we're able to keep, the better off we are in life. What we don't realize is that sometimes in life, the more we keep, the more we are weighed down and unable to go ahead and move forward in life. Now, the Gemara we are speaking specifically regarding money. If Baruch Hu gives you wool, my job in life, obviously I could enjoy my money, right? I could enjoy my money, I could use my money, but I also have to share of my money and give to others. Unless you think, well, one second, the more I have, the better off for me. No, the more you have and don't share, the more weighed down you are in life. And just understand, I will say, ultimately, again, you won't be able to cross the river. You won't be able to cross the river. You won't be able to get to where you need to get to in life. But I'll say, of course, the metaphor is also powerful, not just for money. I will say, in life, as we go through life, we accumulate wool, right? And that wool, I will say, could be a variety of things. That wool could be anger. That wool could be animosity. That wool could be grudges. That wool could be failed relationships. That wool could be anxiety. That wool could be a whole bunch of different things. So I'll say there are some people who refuse to shear their wool, right? They just hold on to everything and accumulate more and more and more. And I will say, what does it do at a certain point? It paralyzes and immobilizes you. If you hold on to too much negativity in life, you cannot move forward. Rather, on the other hand, I will say, if you decide, you know what, today I'm shearing. I don't know if that's the right verb, right? But today I'm shearing. I will say, you know what happens when you shear? You know what happens when you shear? Right? I am light. I could cross the river, I could swim the ocean, I could do, why? Because all of that accumulated stuff is no longer sitting on top of us. So I will say, by the way, isn't it incredible? What's the theme of today? What's the theme of today? The theme of today is self-liberation. That's the theme of today. Identify the things you can't control and offload them to Hashem. Identify the wool, the life wool that you're schlepping around in life that is exhausting. I'm wondering why I'm always panting, why I'm always out of breath, why am I always exhausted? Why? Because I'm schlepping around decades worth of accumulated stuff. But instead, if I just choose to shear it, ultimately, again, I'm so much sure I can move forward. It's true with money. Again, Baruch Hu gives me wool, my job, share it with others. I will say we are custodians of our wealth. Use it, enjoy it, but the primary obligation I have is to be able to share it with others, to make the lives of others better in some way, shape, or form. You think by keeping your wool you're going to have more? You're just weighed down and can't do the things you need to do in life. Let go of the wool in life, get across the river. Weiter. Vini sicha. Amar Rav Zutra says, Afilu ani misparnis minat tzedaka, yaset tzedaka. So we'll say, Vini sicha means even if you're afflicted. Even an ani is obligated to give tzedakah. Say, very important to so maybe just a tiny little bit, maybe it's just a penny, right? But lamaisa, even the ani is obligated to tzedakah. So we'll say, I just want to point out, that's true on a number of different, right? In other words, even the ani is obligated to become a selfless individual, right? The person who's an ani might think, I need to devote all of my efforts and all of my energies inward just to go ahead and keep my head above water. Maybe that's the bulk of his energies and efforts, but even the ani has an obligation to be focused on the needs of the other. Lo encha, O Taner of Yosef, Shuv Marlo Simani Anios. So the Gemara suggests that sometimes the best way to get out of the hole of poverty is how? To become a giver. To become a giver. And I'll point out also, Anios, you know that there's different forms of poverty, right? There's financial poverty, there's emotional poverty, there's intellectual poverty, there's spiritual poverty. But I will say the remedy for all of them is the same. If you want to crawl out of the hole of poverty, what does it require? Become a selfless individual. Think about the other, which sounds so counterintuitive. I would think if I'm in poverty, my goal is I have to work on myself. No, if you are an impoverished individual, I will say whatever kind of poverty I'm suffering from, the best thing you could do, the antidote to poverty, ultimately, is selflessness. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Let's get back to Gittin. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Merekem Lemizrach, Rekem Kemizrach. Right? Rabbi Yehuda said Rekem is the eastern border of Eretz Yisrael, and ultimately Rekem itself is the east. It is considered like Chutz La'aretz. L'meimra da'akol Yitzron Eretz Yisrael Kaim. I will say. So now, according to the Mishnah, Akko is the northernmost point of Eretz Yisrael. So the Gemara says, is that true? Or minu hayimahalech mi Akko l'Ksiv? If you're walking from Akko to Ksiv, mi'yamino l'mizrach haderech tmeya b'shem Eretz Am. So we'll say, so on your right side to the east. Ultimately, again, that's already chutz la'aretz, and therefore, again, there's a tumah. U'p'tur min ha'maiser, and the area is exempt from maiser. U'min ha'shvius, and from shmita. Ad she'yevada l'cha she'chayeves, until you know for sure that ultimately you're back in Eretz Yisrael. On the flip side, mismolo, on your left side, l'mayrav haderech, l'mayrav, which is now to the west, haderech torah m'shem Eretz Am, so that's Eretz Yisrael itself. So ultimately, again, the pathway is tahar because it's not Eretz Amim. So remember, again, Eretz Amim, there's a rabbinic tumah on Chutz La'aretz because of a fear of unmarked graves. So therefore, again, if you're walking from Akko to Ksiv on your left, which is west, that's Eretz Yisrael. V'chayeves b'maiser, it's chayv and maiser, u'b'shvius and shmita, ad shivad l'cha shipitur, until you get to an area that you know for sure is Chutz La'aretz. Ad heichan, until where? Ad Ksiv, until Ksiv. So we'll say, what do you see from here? That Ksiv is further north than Akko. So Akko is not the northernmost point of Eretz Yisrael. Ksiv is. So what's going on over here? So Rabbi Yossi Omer Mishum Aviv ad Lavlavo. Until Lavlavo. It's not Ksiv, but ultimately, again, there's even a northern point. We'll say the point over here, what's our point? The point over here is the Mishnah makes it sound like Akko is the northernmost point of Eretz Yisrael. And in fact, it's not. There's more northern towns. To which the Gemara says, Abaye says, you're right. At the end of the day, right, if you look at Rashi, Rashi even has a picture here. Ritzua Nafka, the Olam Akabat Safon, Ribuya. Really, Akabose is the northernmost point of Eretz Yisrael proper. There happens to be a small strip of land that is Eretz Yisrael that extends from Akko to Ksiv. There really is. But Lamaisa, and you can say, everybody have that picture in Rashi? Right? So you see again, so really, Akko is the northernmost border of Eretz Yisrael proper. There happens to be a small strip of land that is still Eretz Yisrael that extends from Akko to Ksiv. And therefore, again, our Mishnah is reckoning the primary borders. The previous price that we spoke about before was talking about even the Ritzua. V'yav Tana Simna. V'yav Tana Simna Hachi. So I'll say, with the Tana, quoting the halacha we just quoted before, would the Tana give a simon just for a small strip of land? In Kra Nami Yav Simna, because the pasuk itself does the Chsiv. Vayomru Hine Chag LaHashem B'Shilo, Miyamim Yamima. Right? There's a Yom Tiv for Hashem in Shiloh. Asher Mitzvona LeBeit El, Mizracha HaShemesh. That is ultimately, again, that is to the north of Beit El, on the eastern side of the sun. So we'll say, so ultimately, again, there is a pathway that went from, there's a little, not being a pathway, a strip of land that extended from Beit El to Shiloh. So we'll say, so you see from here that the pasuk itself ultimately reckons a strip of land. So this is very important. So just to be clear, Eretz Yisrael actually extends past Akko. Akko is not the northernmost point. Apparently, again, this town of Ksiv was actually the north. But I will say, but again, remember, for Gittin purposes, Akko was the end of Eretz Yisrael proper. The fact that, technically speaking, there's an Eretz Yisrael territory that extends beyond doesn't really matter for halacha. For Gittin purposes, it ends at Akko, even though recognizing territorially, it actually extends a little bit higher. So we'll stop over here for today. New case in Eretz Hashem on the bottom of Zion Rabbeinu. What a day. What a day, what a day, what a day. Shkoyach. All right, Chevron Zoom, have a great day, everyone. Especially the Chevron from Eretz Yisrael. Great to see everyone. Shut this off.